who are the best candidates for the role of the registered manager of carers, because you guys get to see firsthand just how difficult the job is. You guys are the ones getting up early to go and drive or walk from house to house. People who are walking, I really do sympathize with you. You guys are having to deal with the unpredictability of the job and service users as well who have dementia, etc. You guys are having to do the notes. You guys are having to be the first person to sometimes be aware of safeguarding and having to raise that to the manager. You guys are the ones who I would say are the front line. You're the face of the company. Nurses, because they're undervalued and underpaid, unfortunately, but with their care agency, with their own care agency, they get to be in control of the narrative, and most importantly, they get to a point where they get to pay themselves a livable wage. So yeah, I think nurses are obviously great candidates for being a registered manager, because they would have had experience with vulnerable people, obviously, but they also would have had experience with doing care assessments, etc. Next candidates I would say that are great candidates for the role of a registered manager would be social workers, because you guys deal with a lot of caseloads, you deal with a lot of paperwork, you deal with a lot of documentation, and it is so strenuous. And I had a friend who was a social worker, and I just saw how much she had to do, and I personally couldn't do it. I mean, there's a lot of documenting, there's a lot of safeguarding, there's a lot of caseloads, there's a lot of care plans that you have to do in when you're CQC regulated, but I wouldn't say it's half as much as being a social worker, because as a social worker, you could have like 18 caseloads at one time, which I think is insane. But yeah, because you guys have that experience, I would say you are the greatest candidates for the role of a registered manager, because you understand firsthand what it means to be the first point of contact with regards to vulnerable people. So I would say social workers are great candidates for the role of a registered manager. People who are carers for a loved one or next of kin are great candidates for the role of a registered manager. And that's simply because you deal with this day in, day out. You understand what it means to look after a vulnerable person, to engage with them even when they're being challenging, and you understand firsthand what it requires. So I would say people who care for a loved one, have done in the past. Yeah, great candidates for the role of a registered manager. Now, if I didn't mention your expertise, that doesn't mean that you're excluded. This was simply for people who I believe would be ideal candidates, but that does not mean that you are excluded or that you do not have transferable skills. But yeah, until next time.